microphone is on. Okay, I'm going to check my microphone just to make sure it's on. Yes, it's on. As Phil has promised, we're going to show you how we rig up the Pink PowerWorm. They come in a nice package like this, and I have stuffed in there some 100th ounce jig heads that we sell. I think they're on the size 10 hook. So we'll need that. We'll need the Pink PowerWorms. They come in a long string. Just dropped them like that. And you can see they go from skinny to fat to skinny again. And that's how you separate a whole worm. I don't fish the whole worm on that jig. I'll put these away. I take that worm and I pinch, 6 or 7 rings off the front of it. And then off the back, I pinched, 10 or so rings.
I didn't know that.
So that you're fishing only about 2/3 of that total worm. Then you're going to get a jig head. These are the 100th ounce jig heads. If you just threw this Pink PowerWorm out in the water, it would float. So you need to get it down into the water column, and we do it with these 100th ounce jig heads. And because there's such a light jig head, that worm slowly sinks down through the water column. That's what those trout like, is that nice slow sink. So there it is, little tiny jig. We are going to thread that worm as straight as possible onto that jig head, right through the center of the fat end. I'm going to put it on there about 3/8 of an inch or so, and then pop that hook out of it. And just before you seat it all the way up to the jig head, you're going to add a little bit of super glue. We're going to call this super glue. It's not, we're just pretending. You put just a little drop of super glue right there by the head, and then push it all the way up flush to the head so that it runs nice and straight, just like that. A little straighter than that, hopefully. That glue helps hold that worm up to the jig head. If a fish bites it and pulls it down even that far, they will no longer bite it again. So you need to always check that before you cast, make sure it's pushed all the way up, and that super glue will help hold it up there. So that's how we rig the worm onto the hook. We like to use 8 and 9 foot rods, because sometimes we cast this out and we're fishing at 9, 10 feet underneath of a float. A longer rod will help you cast that. So we've got the worm tied to 2-pound test, and it's all wrapped up in here somewhere. And then in the early mornings, you're going to start off fishing at 4 to 5 feet underneath your float, and that's a weighted float. It's got a little bit of a weight on it. That helps you cast it out further because this is such a light rig. From your 2-pound test, maybe 5 feet of it, you'll want to have 4-pound test up to our braid right here. And this braid to the 4-pound is attached right there. That braid floats on top. That way you can see your line. If you got to mend it like you do in fly fishing and maintain some line control, it's a little easier to do that. If you cast this out here and let it all get sloppy and windy and curvy out there, a lot of slack line, you get a bite and you go to set the hook. If you don't maintain some line control and keep some of that slack out, you won't make contact with the fish. You'll just pull up slack line off the water. So that's why we like that to float, so we can see what it's doing and see if we have to get some of that slack out of it. Also with the braid, I take a lot of people fishing that aren't very experienced, and when they hook into a fish, they'll just start reeling. got the drag set real light. They're reeling against the drag with just straight monofilament that would spin the line all up and create all kinds of twists and knots. With braid, it doesn't twist up, so people can just reel as much as they want to reel to get that fish in. Just make sure your drag is set nice and light, that it doesn't break that 2-pound test. Right now, with the water clarity we have, you have to fish from the bobber to the jig 2-pound test in order to get bites. And that's how we rig it up. Thanks for watching.